where you repeatedly punched the same victim in the stomach. That was in April of 2018. Was that because you both were trying to figure out whether she was pregnant?
No, that had nothing to do with her claiming to be pregnant or me thinking that she was or wasn't pregnant.
Okay. She had just informed you that she thought she might be pregnant, but hadn't yet taken the pregnancy test. And you two got in an argument and you punched her multiple times in the stomach. Why would you choose to do that?
When I'm pretty sure that when that incident happened, I probably assaulted her in other places other than the stomach. But the victim in this case is the mother of my first child, and I wanted a relationship with her. I wanted more children with her. So for me to intentionally punch her in the stomach would be contradictory to what I wanted.
You just can't make it up. You know, he's serving an 8-year sentence for what he did to her after he violated a protective order. Well, we know that those protection orders, those are useless. It's just a piece of paper. The offense that she's bringing up, that's just one of the many offenses. But that's not why he's locked up in prison. And it's these kind of cases, it just gets me so fired up to actually hear a man say, well, I don't know. I did assault her, but why would I punch her in the stomach? I wanted to have a baby. It must have been a mistake. And it's like, I cannot wrap my mind around someone doing that. And still, they gave an 8-year sentence, which is more than what we're accustomed to seeing. But he has a long record. It's not like this is his first offense. He has arrest after arrest after arrest. And I'll review that with you at the end in the unpacking. But I think the parole board does a pretty good job at bringing out how violent of a man he is. And really, in my opinion, just how pathetic. How pathetic. Go pick on someone your own size. No, you got to do this to the mother of your child. You got to do this to a pregnant woman. Oh, go ahead, you tough guy. It's always interesting how they don't have write-ups for fighting in prison. Men who do this to women, they so often don't because, no, they're afraid of picking on someone their own side. But anyways, that's enough of my little venting for here. We'll watch this parole hearing, and I'll unpack it with the details Sir Richard has.
Nino Neely, 373601.
This hearing is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Nino Neely, inmate number 373601. He is serving a sentence of 8 years followed by 10-year special parole for assault first. As of today, records reflect a parole eligibility date of May 10th, 2025. There is victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows the offender has completed the following programs. Voices, February of 2020, anger management, October of 2019, embracing fatherhood, December of 2022, domestic violence, April of 2020, which he completed outside of the classroom, good intentions, bad choices, June of 2022, second chance Pell program, May of 2023, the Quinnipiac College program, December 11th of 2024, and he is currently participating in a Tier 2 program with estimated completion of 12/26/2024. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score falls within the moderate range of risk for recidivism. Mr. Neely, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you need parole. May begin.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the parole board. I would like today to start off by saying thank you for seeing me this morning. I can openly admit now, when I started this journey, I was nothing more than a lost boy in a man's body. I was looking for any way to place blame on anyone else for the mistakes made that landed me in prison. However, as the years passed by and time ticked away, I was forced to confront the person in the mirror with the truth, which is that only I am to blame. Because I knowingly and recklessly made decisions that almost permanently damaged someone else physically. This forced realization had so many unintended consequences that I will now and always be grateful for. First of which, finally being able to take full accountability and sincerely apologizing to the victim for all my horrendous acts in the past. In my heart, I do not believe that it was my verbal apology that allowed the victim, who happens to be the mother of my 10-year-old daughter, to find the courage to grant me the opportunity to co-parent and be a father to my child. Honestly, I think it was through the action, the change in my behavior and the maturity in my thinking that showed her the true sincerity of my apology. Another unintended consequence was I started taking rehabilitation seriously, and it made it my duty to find purpose in my punishment. So I started requesting to be in every available program. Although the programs that I have participated in during my incarceration have taught me more lessons than I have the time to list off currently, to me, the most important lesson I have learned is that even though I am serving a punishment for my actions by being incarcerated for a period of time, it pales in comparison to the fact that the victim of my crime will spend the rest of her life traumatized in some way by my actions. For that, there is no way to apologize, but I will forever be remorseful. That is not to say there wasn't anything gained from each and every program. In each program, I learned a valuable life-altering lesson. For instance, taking domestic violence, I learned that to take a deeper look into some of the specific incidents when I reacted violently. Quickly, I noticed that there was a pattern. In fact, I was acting off of insecurity, jealousy, and out of fear of being left alone. During one of these deeper looks, I had to admit to myself, I was just trying to dictate my past relationships with physical violence because I found comfortability in the control. Once I was comfortable enough to make those confessions out loud to myself, I was actually able to listen and take in the techniques and skills that the instructor was providing me. To first become comfortable with who I am, and then learn what a healthy relationship with someone else actually is. In anger management, I was shown that there is always a way to take time and make space to think in any situation, no matter how hectic it seems at first. While in the Voices program, I learned that there were more victims to my crime than the one that suffered directly from my physical actions. And embracing fatherhood gave me the tools and skills I need to be an active father to my children, who are also part of the unintended victims. Although I have been in countless NA and AA meetings during my incarceration, I'm currently in Tier 2 drug program, which is teaching me how even the drug marijuana plays a pivotal role in the decision-making process. I used to downplay the drug's effect, but I am beginning to understand how my prolonged use of the drug could have had affected my logical thinking. Of course, I cannot negate the fact that I have received multiple disciplinary tickets during my time incarcerated. I came to prison full of unnecessary anger and guarded, but with each new tool learned, I began to use healthy coping skills to cope with the anger and the disciplinary incidents reduced dramatically. I was even able to remain ticket-free long enough to receive the RREC lump sum. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I know that being granted parole is an earned privilege, and I need you to know that if I'm granted this privilege, I will use it to show with action that I have grown immeasurably from this experience. Although I have a job lined up for me when I'm released, I plan on utilizing re-entry services to obtain my forklift operator's license to get hired with the company so I can gain financial stability. I would also like to enroll in the CCAR program in the community and become a recovery coach. I believe full-heartedly that I can make a career helping others through the lessons learned throughout my journey. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen of the parole board, for your time this morning.
Well, thank you, Mr. Neely. You did a good job with that.
Thank you.
Did you spend a lot of time on the statement?
Yes,
Okay, well, it shows you covered a lot of ground.
thank you.
We'll take turns asking you questions that we've developed from the documents that were available to us, and then we'll hear from OVS and we'll make our decision this morning. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, well, we'll begin with questions with my colleague, Mr. Sosowskis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Hey, I was listening to your statement and, I heard something when you talked about the domestic violence program, and you said you learned what a healthy relationship should be like, because this is what we're dealing with. It's all stuff about relationships. So that's an important statement. So I just want to hear a little bit more. If you could expand on that, like, how do you envision a healthy relationship in the future?
Well, open communication, is key. I believe that when I first came in, I couldn't take the word no. I couldn't take, give me a second, or I need space. Domestic violence taught me that it's okay to give up that control. If she needs space, or my partner needs space, or anybody that I have a relationship with needs space, or wants time to think, or needs time for themselves, they deserve that.
Yeah, that's very important. It was something I was just talking about before, another case. And those are very important coping skills, because these fights and these arguments in domestic violence situations, they don't go from 0 to 100 like it's a gradual thing, right? So you're going to have some warning signs in advance that it's, your disagreement's starting to escalate, right? And that's
Yes.
that's the time during that time before it gets out of hand. That's the time that you need to take a break and get away from the situation. And if they want to get away from the situation at any point, they're giving you a signal, right? That this is, we need to take a break. You know what I mean? So those are important recognitions by you, and takeaways from that class that are important. I read through all the documents in the case, and you disagree with some of the facts of what took place. So I just wanted to go over some of the things quickly. Do you remember jabbing the victim in the stomach with a crowbar? Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. What about throwing rocks at the victim?
I didn't throw rocks. I had a BB gun in this case.
Yep.
And I had fired the BB gun, and I don't know if it hit her, but I'm pretty sure that that's where those marks came from. Is when that morning I was definitely firing the BB gun.
That was the other question I was going to have. Do you remember shooting the victim with the BB gun? So all of those facts are accurate.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to go over some of it because there was some of the reports were hard for me to understand whether you acknowledged if those were the things you did or not. It sounds like on that day there was some back and forth between different houses or different people moving around. And it sounded like kind of chaotic,
It was.
Yeah. So you talked about your disciplinary reports a little bit, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was the next thing I was going to talk about. You received 19 disciplinary reports over the course of your incarceration. That's a lot,
Yes.
So, 5 of those were for making threats or concerning, because it's the same kind of behavior, you know what I mean? So when we look at the DRs, I'm looking at like, what are you in there for? Is it similar? And then there's some threats and things like that. And you did some threatening in these cases. And one of the threats, it sounds like it took place after you completed the anger management class. Why did you have so much trouble adjusting, like in the beginning?
Like I said, I came in, I was full of anger, at the wrong people. I was full of anger towards staff, towards authority. I wasn't letting the lessons that I was learning sink in. My eyes weren't open yet to the realization of, like, this is harming me. This is harming the people that I love. It's keeping me away from the people that I love and the people that I care about and that matter to me. So as you can tell, like, once I started really utilizing the tools that I was learning from these programs, those type of disciplinary tickets stopped.
Yeah, it's been over a year. I don't think you've had anything, right? When do you think, what was it that made that change? Like, when did that happen? Was it in a class? Do you recall when you decided, I had enough, this was it, I'm going to do things different? When did that take place?
Actually the last ticket that I caught for threatening, which was I believe it was in Cheshire, and I ended up getting moved to McDougal.
Yeah.
And it was just enough. Like, it was just time. I was getting older. I'm 32 years old now, and it was like I'm missing out on vital moments in my children's lives because I'm being hard-headed.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got out of seg that last time, I made a promise to myself in the cell, like I'm done.
So I have the opportunity, have you had the opportunity to talk to other inmates about how you feel about that? Younger people especially that are maybe struggling?
I try to coach sometimes. It's kind of difficult because they're still in that stage of, well, I'm gonna do what I want.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're gonna do what you want, but what is the price that you're gonna have to pay for doing what you want? And are you willing to pay that price? Because it's time.
Yeah. And they're gonna have to come in front of us at some point and then talk about all these things, you know what I mean? And explain why all these things keep happening while they're incarcerated, and then, you know, it makes it more difficult for us, you know what I mean?
And then not only that, it makes it more difficult for themselves too, because they have to realize, they have to come face to face with themselves and realize, like, I was wrong. The choices that I'm making weren't right.
So I see you've taken a lot of programs, which is really good. It's what we look for. What kind of programs do you think helped you the most?
Embracing fatherhood.
Yeah.
I'm also enrolled right now in a CLIck program, and it's an outreach program between fathers and their children. And
You guys,
I feel like
you read together, right? Is that the one you read?
yeah, yep. And I feel like that showed me that I need to be there. Like I need to be in my child's life. And that's what really changed my whole behavior, my whole mindset.
What about tier 2? You're in that now, right?
I'm currently in tier 2. And that's actually the reason why I want to be a recovery coach. Because I'm learning that drugs play a pivotal role in everybody's day-to-day behavior, especially when you're under the influence of certain drugs.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about the things with domestic violence, recognizing when there's a problem and then making good decisions. It's not as easy to do. You understand, when you're using marijuana or alcohol during that time, or any of them drugs, right? Your decision making is not the same. You might not even see the risk and the warnings that are coming your way, you know? So let's talk about this last one. Looks like August 2023, the Pruno ticket. What was going on?
I was selling Pruno in the dorm. I know that it was the wrong decision to make, but I fell into hard times when it came to money, and somebody tapped me like, hey, this is an easy way for you to make money. I regret making the decision now. I've been down at that point for about 5 years, and I never had a ticket like that. I never even had an incident like that. So it's like, it was out of the ordinary for me to do that.
Yeah, it's not a good look. You know, what you're describing, and someone came up to you and approached you about making easy money. Those are the stories that we hear about people that are drug dealers in the community. You know what I'm saying? You're saying the same exact thing. So, you know, that just leads me to, like, you know, when you're out and you can't find a job because of your record or whatever, and somebody offers you some easy way to make money, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that, yeah. So it's just not a good look, you know?
So in that incident, that's what I learned from that. Like, all right, if this can easily land me in SAG, there's fentanyl, there's heroin that's killing people that can land me in jail for the rest of my life. So instead, I'd rather be broke eating steak trays and not have to be in SAG, missing more time with my family. And I'm sitting in SAG thinking, like, you just stop getting in trouble and threatening and going to SAG for a whole 2 years to just revert back to this and get in trouble.
Yeah. How do you think you've changed, like, overall, since you've been incarcerated? I know the beginning was a little rough, but how do you feel different?
I've matured a lot. Like I view things differently. I take my time to think decisions through now. It's just anybody that knew me when I was 26 or 22, 25, they would look at me now and see a completely different man.
What's your relationship? You have a child with the victim? Is that what you said?
Yeah, yes.
So what's your relationship? I don't want to use any names, but what's your relationship with the victim now? What's that like?
We have a respectful co-parenting relationship. I call at least 3 times a week to speak with my child. We've come to an agreement with visiting when I am released. I feel wholeheartedly that she's forgiven me for my actions. I know that for the rest of my life, I'll be working towards making her feel like it's okay to be around me. I know that was a traumatic event. No matter how much time is going to pass, that will always be a traumatic event for her. And I hope that in time, she'll be okay.
Okay. So, I mean, what's your plan when you talk about visiting? Like at some point you're going to get out. How are you going to negotiate that so you don't have any more problems? Like, do you have somebody in between that can help facilitate that?
Yeah, so I have a very good relationship with her mother.
Okay.
And I talk to her mother almost on a weekly basis, just letting her know how I'm doing in jail. And we've gotten a very good bond by doing that. So I'm pretty confident in, like, if we need to mediate anything, that I can go to her mother and talk to her mother.
Okay. I see you're taking some college classes now, right?
Yes.
What classes are you in right now?
Right now I'm currently in the criminal justice field, I guess, but it's how criminology affects America. And we basically talked about the statistics of, like, every aspect of who goes to jail.
You're part of those statistics. You've added to that, you understand that?
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah. So, that's at Quinnipiac?
Yes.
All right. And you have plans to continue to do that, like when you're out to go to some college?
Well, I plan on enrolling in the CCAR program, and that's recovery coaches. And I really want to pursue that field so I can help others so they don't make the same mistakes or choose the same choices that I once did.
Okay. And so have you met with CCAR already in the facility?
Well, I've talked to Ms. Slow and I've applied for CCAR here. I haven't received anything back, but I'm hopeful that once I complete tier 2, she'll reach out to me.
Okay. And do you go to NA or AA meetings there?
In the facility, no. I actually have a little group that I meet with in the dorm. And we discuss, between ourselves, like the 12 steps and trying to help each other recover from past drug uses.
So during the interview, there was something with the parole officer that struck me. You mentioned that you have power within the community. You remember saying that? I'm trying to understand what that means.
Well, I'm in the community that I'm from, I'm well known. So a lot of people gravitate towards me, and they usually want to talk to me or approach me about something when something's happening in the community. So
How did that come about?
Well, I'm from a projects in Waterbury, and I was born and raised there. So I grew up there. When I left to college, I came back and I moved right back into the same projects. So
Where did you go to college?
The Art Institute of Pittsburgh.
How long did that last?
I went there for a year.
Okay. That's good. You lived there when that was stayed there for a whole year?
No, I lived there for 2.5 years. I actually was employed after college.
And what kind of art do you do?
Culinary.
Okay, I see. So let's talk about your work and where you're gonna live at when you're released. What's your plan?
Well, I'll be staying with a friend in Waterbury, and I have a couple jobs lined up doing construction. I have a job lined up if that doesn't work out, because I know if I get released anytime soon, it's the winter time and construction is pretty slow. So I have a friend that can give me a job rearranging ShopRites in different locations in Connecticut. And then I plan on enrolling in CCAR to hopefully become a recovery coach.
Okay, well, I think there was a letter from your friend, right? Your sponsor?
Mhm.
How do you, yeah, the other person, how do you know that person?
Tyra Brown.
Yeah.
I've known her since middle school, and we've just had a friendship since middle school.
Do you have any romantic intent with her?
No,
And you're clear with her about that?
yes,
Thank you very much, sir, for answering my questions. I'm gonna pass it on to my colleagues and see if they have any questions for you, okay?
thank you, yes.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Chance?
Do you think the sentence is fair?
Pardon me, I couldn't, the microphone is breaking up.
Do you think your sentence is fair that you received?
Yes,
You remember saying to the judge that you thought it was excessive because there was no major or permanent damage done to the victim?
yes,
You no longer think it's excessive.
no.
What changed your mind?
The fact that I learned about the traumatic effects that my actions did have, and that's gonna last, like I said in the letter, that's gonna last a lifetime. I only have to do 7 years in prison. Eventually, this time is gonna end, and she'll continue to go through the traumatic events.
8 years, sir.
8 years, I apologize, 8 years.
So you said you've matured a lot and you now think things through. When did that maturity come about?
It was a process. I feel like even today, I'm still learning and maturing.
So, why were you selling Chrono last August?
I didn't have any money.
But I thought you said you're matured and you think things through.
That was one of the progressions.
Where do you think you stand today in terms of the seriousness of the assault that you committed against this victim and the programs that you've taken, and try to be honest?
I feel disgusted. I feel like I know that I can never take it back. I have a child of my own. I hope she never goes through that. And that's one of my biggest fears now, is that I have to wake up and receive that phone call that she has gone through that. So I hope that I can help the people around me to learn better, to make better choices, and that physical violence is never the answer.
You know, Mr. Neely, you strike me as a pretty intelligent person. So I'm wondering why it is that you never realized before that this offense that you committed against the victim would not only impact her, but her family, your community, your children.
I wasn't thinking that far ahead. Up until Voices, honestly, I wasn't even thinking about other victims. When I first committed this crime, I thought I only committed a crime against one person. I only had one victim in this case. As time progressed and I really started realizing a lot of people suffer from my crime. Not only the people that you named, but the grandmother of my children. They both have to shoulder the burden of my absence. There's friends and family that have to shoulder the burden of taking care of my kids. And a lot of people that I've lost.
Who is your support system in the community?
Well, I have an uncle. I have Tyra, the grandmother of my children. I have a couple family members in Waterbury. I have an extended support system in the Bridgeport area. I have a sister and her grandmother in Bridgeport. So I believe that they'll provide me with guidance when I am in the community.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering my questions, Mr. Neely. I wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Neely, a couple of things. There was an incident prior to the crowbar and BB gun incident where you repeatedly punched the same victim in the stomach. That was in April of 2018. Was that because you both were trying to figure out whether she was pregnant?
No, that had nothing to do with her claiming to be pregnant or me thinking that she was or wasn't pregnant.
Okay. She had just informed you that she thought she might be pregnant, but hadn't yet taken the pregnancy test. And you two got in an argument and you punched her multiple times in the stomach. Why would you choose to do that?
I'm pretty sure that when that incident happened, I probably assaulted her in other places other than the stomach. But the victim in this case is the mother of my first child. And I wanted a relationship with her. I wanted more children with her. So for me to intentionally punch her in the stomach would be contradictory to what I wanted.
Okay, well, it certainly looked like you were doing your best to induce a miscarriage. So I don't know that I've seen before someone standing before a judge trying to argue down an assault one with extreme indifference to human life down to an assault second. And the judge explained to you that this was tantamount to a home invasion, which would have carried its own sentence. But your no major or permanent damage done to the victim argument seems a little specious given what we're talking about today, where you acknowledge the trauma that she is likely continuing to grapple with. You did say to her in that incident in July that if you call the cops on me one more time, I'm going to slice your throat. Do you remember that you said that to her?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So did you learn anything in the domestic violence program about the crime of strangulation?
I don't recall that I learned it in the class, but I definitely learned a lot throughout my time in prison about the crime of strangulation and the effects that cutting the airway off to somebody can have other than killing them. It can cause brain damage.
It can also kill them hours later after you've taken your hands off their throat because of the swelling that happens internally.
Yes.
And you never know how much or how little pressure to apply to someone's throat before you kill them. That's why it's its own statute in our state. It's an indicator of lethality, you know, that someone's at risk for dying because their partner is willing to put their hands around the victim's throat. So you were on probation for strangulation when you violated the protective order by breaking into her house, wielding a crowbar, and in possession of a BB gun. So all of that is very concerning. You have a long assault history starting in 2014 with assault second, and it's just continued on, and here you are serving a sentence for assault first. And I'm assuming the protective order was put in place due to the strangulation incident?
I believe that it was put in place once I was released and I committed another, I believe it was an assault third, and the police were called.
Yeah. You know, I guess, you know, you were in a place where nothing really mattered. You were on probation, you know, with protective order in place, and you did nothing to uphold either obligation. And, you know, I know that you said that you were selling the pruno that you were making there in the prison because you needed money and you were on hard times, and that you told my colleague that you realized, you know, that segregation wasn't worth it. So now you sit in the Tier 2 program and you talk about working in a small community with others there who are working on their recovery to work the 12 steps. And yet you were inside prison, violating the rules, willing to jeopardize the recovery that others were trying to achieve for themselves because you know you wanted money for food.
I definitely understand how selfish those actions were at the time.
Yeah.
And I definitely learned from those actions.
But what you learned was the consequence of segregation. I'm just wondering if you really appreciate the harm that you were causing to people living there in the prison trying to get their lives together.
Those are the consequences that I learned from. That was the selfishness in those actions. I wasn't.
Okay. All right, because that wasn't what you explained to my colleague. You just talked about, you know, the hardship of segregation. So I just wanted to highlight that we all live in a community, whether it's there in a facility or it's out here in the wider population. And, you know, to disrespect the struggles of another person for your own selfish gains is why we have prisons, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's it for the questions. So at this point, we're going to turn the hearing over to Ms. Hamlet Williams. I ask you not to interrupt while she's speaking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a statement from the victim in this case. I'm the victim in the case with Nino Neely. He is also the father of my daughter. I'm writing this letter on behalf of Nino Neely. I just wanted to say that I am on board with Nino being paroled early and released. Over the last 6 years, I have seen a lot of growth in Nino. He is regularly engaged when it comes to our daughter, has helped when it comes to any aspect of his daughter's life, sometimes even financially. He has been very active in her school life and has never missed a holiday or birthday call. Me and Nino have had many conversations about what transpired between us and the events that led to his incarceration. And I believe Nino has learned the error of his ways and has grown tremendously and accepted and acknowledged what he did was wrong. I would be tremendously grateful if Nino was approved for early parole for the sake of his daughter. She misses her father and she needs him out so he can be physically here and active in her life, not just through a phone. I do not fear Nino. I do not think Nino will hurt me again, and I believe he deserves to get out. Thank you for taking the time to hear me. Thank you, panel.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hamlet Williams. Real act of grace, Mr. Neely.
More
So
than
we're
I
going to
deserve.
discuss your case. Give us just a minute. Mr. Sosowskis, you began.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So, the facts of this case are very disturbing, reading through the report. And, also reading over his history of similar behavior, and then his tickets early in his incarceration also give me some concern. But upon speaking to Mr. Neely and hearing his opening statement and his presentation of remorse and regret and apology, and is able to explain what he learned from the programs that he's taken and how he can use those things when he's out in the community, I do see some change in him. And after listening to the victim's statement and considering all the facts, I would be in support today of his parole.
Okay. His end of sentence is April of 2026, and he's not eligible until March of 2025. So it's a difference of a year with 10 special parole to follow. Ms. Chan?
So, for me, I do hear some form of change, but I am concerned because of the nature of the offense. Mr. Neely said that, during the DV that it was very helpful to him because, he was able to identify, he very mature. He can think things through. Yet last year he was selling Pruno because he said he needed money. And so I'm concerned that he may be on the cusp of change, but for me, I think Mr. Neely needs to acknowledge some honesty about changes within himself. And for me, I don't think he's done that today, despite completing the domestic violence. So it's a denial for me.
I was certainly concerned reading the anger management program summary. He didn't score excellent. He scored good all the way down. And I don't know if that was a lack of effort on his part. He's back in 2019, so he's still catching a lot of tickets then. It is very difficult to overlook a situation with someone accumulating 19 disciplinary tickets. We're going to see somebody next week who's served over 20 years and had one DR. And, he was engaging in things like threatening, which is, part and parcel of this current offense. That was back in 2020. Things were quite difficult for everybody involved as we went through the pandemic. He's going to finish the Tier 2 program this month, and then he's not eligible until mid to late March. I'm going to vote in favor of early release to discretionary parole for Mr. Neely. circumstances are very concerning. He's done programming and explained to us how he's benefited from that programming. Seems to have some new insights to work with. And this will give him a head start on the 10 years of special parole he has ahead of him. You know, I certainly hope he will approach parole with the right mindset, that they're there to support him being successful. And if not, he'll be back to finish that sentence and perhaps even the special parole if he violates. I would like him to have continue in his efforts with domestic violence programming, not to have contact with the victim without the parole officer's permission. And I'd like to stipulate a halfway house in the event that his sponsor doesn't work out, or this is somebody who, you know, grows tired of him. I think, did I read that he's going to live on the couch? So that's not going to work out long term in any situation. So halfway house if he needs it, rather than him, you know, absconding from parole supervision because the residence isn't working. Any other conditions?
No, that's all I have.
All right. So in the matter of Nino Neely, inmate number 373601, there's motion to grant parole on or after your earliest eligibility date, Officer Dunkley, March 20, May. Okay, May 10th, 2025. Right. Apologies. With the following conditions, you're to engage in behavior management for domestic violence. You're to have a halfway house in place if needed, and you're to have no contact with the victim, initials GR, without your parole officer's permission. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so this is a majority decision, Mr. Neely, for May of next year. If you get any disciplinary issues between now and then, or you fail to complete the Tier 2 program, all of this can change.
I understand.
Yeah, be very careful.
Thank you, guys.
This concludes the hearing for Nino Neely, inmate number 373601. You're all set, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and I'm going to record without my famous prison background, and that's because I just did the unpacking 7 different times, maybe at least 7, maybe 8, and for some reason, the recording it's not working. It's intermittently putting me on mute, so I've lost my cool right now. It is frustrating. I do not know why. Maybe it's a software outage, maybe it's a bug, but apparently the recording's working here. So I'm gonna do my unpacking now. As you can see, I have art around behind me. My office is covered in my children's art. I just glue it on everywhere, and the reason it's not completely back here is because this is brick, and I don't know, but it's everywhere else. But yeah, this is my studio. Welcome to my humble abode. And let me start by the unpacking now. I just don't get it. I don't get why. You know, thankfully Miss Chance denied. In today's hearings, Miss Chance was on a roll with denying while the others were granting. And I don't get it. It's like they talked themselves into wanting to grant, and there's no reason for it. He has special parole. And if you don't think it gets around the Connecticut, you know, prisons, like, hey, don't worry about it, man. You can take the risk. You can make the calculated bet. You can sell Pruno and still get granted. That's crazy. And they're like, well, it's conditioned. You finish a program and you don't get write-ups. And maybe you can say, all right, they want to get him in the right headspace, but I don't know. I don't have empathy for someone who beats up on a woman who literally, without skipping a beat, says, oh, I was beating her up, but I didn't punch her in the stomach. You're pregnant, you know, punching her in the what? Who does that? And he's so nonchalant about it. Oh, I didn't throw rocks at her. I mean, I didn't shoot. No, sorry. I didn't throw rocks at her. I shot her. What? You didn't throw rocks at her. You shot her. Wow. And it's just said so, like, without any care in the world. And then, of course, you have her show up, and we see this all the time. We see the Louisiana parole revocation hearings where they'll come up and say, I know I called the cops on him, but it wasn't him that did it. You see, my black eye, I fell down. That's how it happened. Or he didn't throw me out the window. I tripped and fell out the window. Or the car drove by itself. It ran me over. My dog bit me. He didn't do it. It was, the scratches on my face. It's from my pet lizard. I mean, they'll come up with anything to protect their abuser. And that's the nature of DV. And it's like the parole board doesn't understand it. They actually said, oh, it's great, she's so gracious that she's saying that she forgives you and wants you home with her. And that's not gracious. That's the cycle of abuse. You need to identify that. You know, I like it when the Louisiana parole board actually would make a statement. You know, you might want to go to this and this program in class and see the other folks that are in this cycle of abuse. This isn't normal abuse. This is the type of abuse that ends up in your death. You don't just go and it's a long cycle. So Richard provided me with his record, and you have 2015 where he has assault and he has strangulation, and then you have 2017 where he has threatening, and then you finally have, and you have a couple other things here and there, and then you have the 2018 where it's assault with endangerment to life, and it's just so nonchalant about it. And I don't. He's dangerous. In my opinion, he's dangerous, and he's a coward. And you notice he doesn't have any fighting write-ups, not one fighting write-up. He has threatening write-ups because that's a good cowardice thing to do, blah, blah, but not actually doing anything. And we see this stuff all the time in the news. It has its 10 seconds of fame. Man gets out of prison, abuser gets out of prison, kills the person. They talk about, oh, why couldn't we need to do things to do better. But this is what's cool about the parole hearings. I should say important about the parole hearings is that we get to track it in real time. We get to see how it happened. And hopefully, I don't know. That's all my 2 cents. And with that, I'll let you go.
You know, I don't know that I've seen before someone standing before a judge trying to argue down an assault 1 with extreme indifference to human life down to an assault 2nd. You know, and the judge explained to you that this was tantamount to a home invasion, which would have carried its own sentence. But your no major or permanent damage done to the victim argument seems a little specious given what we're talking about today, where you acknowledge the trauma that she is likely continuing to grapple with. You did say to her in that incident in July that if you call the cops on me one more time, I'm going to slice your throat. Do you remember that you said that to her?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And